At Looking Glass, we used to make fun of a character called Iolo from the Ultimate series, who, when the games would open, the player was told, "This is Iolo, he's your best friend." What does the player do? Kill him right away. Fuck you, you're not my friend. Like, how much heavy shit can I give to Iolo? So you're handing him anvils, and you're like handing him shit that's on fire, and throwing fish at him, you know. He's not your friend, okay? That effect is well known to game designers. I think that you guys are starting to feel a little bit of a sting from that same effect in the feedback you're getting from the audience. They don't want to be told that a product is cool. Like, fuck you, I know if it's cool or not. They want to be engaged in a dialogue. And you need to get over a certain level of fear that I think game designers and other people who have been under the wealth of critics for a long time have had to get over. Sitting for 3 days and crying in your house and getting back to it is starting to apply, I think, in a much more direct and real and live way to what you guys do as well.
Seamus did two things really well. One, unplanned, he really connected the dots with what Micro Packer talked about in the industry, meaning there's this kind of renaissance going on, and talked about where it's come over the lifespan of it, and its peaks and valleys, and how it's very live and vibrant. But then he got into the deep aspects of it, of how gaming actually is now entered the fabric of everybody's life. That isn't just in the consoles. It's in product marketing. It's in everyday life of points that we collect in everything we do. It's
in the dashboard of your Prius.
It was one of the knocks, right? When people take experts out, I was like, Seamus is doing gaming in Prius. It's like, that was out of context. But the reality of calculating how efficient you can be with your gas mileage was a really interesting notion of being genuine with really the aspects of our product, and that tied into what his second part, which is this idea of being cool.
You know, what that represents is a cultural shift. It represents a shift away from games being an outside phenomenon and not part of legitimate entertainment and not part of legitimate culture, to games being core to legitimate culture. The interface on the Prius is a tablet video game. And the game that you play trying to get the maximum mileage is a video game.
Some of the panels were really interesting. I thought probably the most fun panel was the one with the YouTube celebrities. These guys are unbelievable personalities, and more they're commanding our consumers' attention much greater than television. So some of these guys have millions of subscribers, and they're doing a tremendous amount of content, 5 to 10 videos a day.
It was interesting to hear them talk about what happens when a brand calls up and it isn't necessarily a brand that they have a high affinity for. How do they deal with that? How can they look at the eyes of their viewers and feel authentic?
You would hope that somebody would like your film or your TV show or your game well enough to say, this is the best thing I've ever tried, it's great, you should try it too, you should be a part of this. But you can't expect that somebody will say exactly what you want them to say. You have to allow people like myself and Toby and Olga to have their perspective on something where it's like,
if they script it for you, it's
scripted anything it never works. And I know it's very frightening to sort of remove some of that control, because when you pay for something, you want to get your money's worth. But when it comes down to it, it's like when it comes to, like, for instance, like whether or not your video will be viral, you don't have control over that. It's just either it takes off or it doesn't.
All right, so like I said in the beginning, I started out making commercials. Everybody loves commercials. You don't have to love the product to make an awesome commercial that's going to be hilarious and remembered forever. But it's different when you're telling your people, like, hey, I use this thing, I love it, it's great. That's extremely effective. But if you're making a video about McDonald's or about, I've done a couple thing about Mountain Dew. I never drank Mountain Dew, but the thing it got like 5 million views, and it was one of my favorite sponsored things. And it doesn't matter if it's a sketch that's funny. That's what makes it work.
It's funny, the probably two biggest topics that are going on in the last year or so with marketing and gaming. One, social, right, which talked about earlier, and two, content. right? And specifically the YouTube influencers and the, whether this is machinima or collective or makers or people that are doing talent. And I was really excited about this panel, learning about it.
It's all part of that magical mix of how do you build desire, right? Is it enough to just say buy something? No, you really do. It's like dating. It's back to that analogy. You do need to sort of, grease the skids, right? You need to like get people into it. You need to light the candles and warm up the room and, have some wine, right? And so that's what this content is a lot of times, is that sort of that romance.